We got a special day, two videos today, and yeah, I just wanted to make a video of some of Eileen's games in this video because I feel like Eileen is very close to kind of turning a corner in her chess development, and I thought making a video would be helpful for her and for all the students for that matter. So even though we're going to be going over Eileen's games, it's going to be a video for that's hopefully instructive for anyone. So let's just jump to it. So this game, Eileen had the black pieces against Josiah. So we had e4, e5, knight f3, and knight f6. So this is called the Petrov defense. So notice that both sides have made the same exact moves here. So Josiah went ahead and jumped in with knight takes e5, which is the main line, which means it's the most common and most likely the best move here. There are some other options that we could look at. A variation I like is this move d4. We're not gonna go too much into this because it's just a lot of opening theory. That's not really the point of the video. The point is just to kind of give the kids some instruction on what to do. So we're not going to go into like every single variation, but I just wanted to give a couple ideas. Knight c3 is another idea, just protecting the pawn. But knight takes e5, which is what Josiah played, is by far the most common move here. Okay, so in this position, if we just keep copying with this move, knight takes e4, this move's already a very, very big mistake for black. And we've talked about this a lot, this specific variation, and I want to just go over this again. So the reason why this move is bad is because it's white moves first, so white has the initiative or the advantage of moving first. So here we have an open e file, and we have this knight and this king on the open e file. So after Josiah plays queen e2, black is already in a lot of trouble here. So the main problem for black is if they move this knight anywhere, let's say they go knight to f6, here we just have the queen and the king on the same file, and it's an open file. And even worse, the king is on the open file. So in this position, we have a discovered check possibility. As soon as we move this knight, the queen's going to attack the king. So in this position, if we play knight c6, hitting the queen, hitting this square as well, we're going to win the queen. Because notice that the black king is in check. And we always talk about in class that a check is the most forcing move because your opponent cannot ignore a check. So the queen's attacking the king. We don't have time to take the knight with one of these pawns because the king would still be in check. If we block the check with our queen, that doesn't help us because the knight is hitting this square. Excuse me. The knight is hitting this square as well. So we can just play knight takes queen here, and we're just up a bunch of material. So that's the first problem. If we play a move like d5, here we just attack the pin piece. So we can play a move like d3. I guess technically it's not pinned, but again, if the knight moves, we have this knight c6 move, which just picks up the queen. So d3 is a really strong move here. And the main problem for black is if they play queen e7 here, we could take the knight with the pawn. If black takes our knight, the main problem is after pawn takes pawn, notice the black queen can't take back because of the pin. So that's the main issue for black here. So in this position, white is just up a clean pawn. They have a slightly better development, and white is just much better because of the extra material, right? They have extra pawn, and that's good enough to be much better, especially like with everything else being even. So what else do I want to say here? And then let's say they play queen e7 like in the game. Actually, hold on. Let's say they play d6. We should look at this option. Here we're still just dropping a pawn as black. Because after the pawn takes a knight, we just capture the pawn here, and now we're up a whole pawn. If they play bishop here, we might be able just to grab this second pawn, and now we're up 2 pawns, and everything is looking good. If you decide to block here with the queen, we have a couple choices. We could either just play queen takes queen here. We could also play a move like d4 and try to develop our dark square bishop, and we're protecting our queen at the same time. So all of this is very good for white. So you might be wondering, well, what should I play then? So in this position as black, you don't take the pawn here. The most common move for black is you just play d6 first, attacking your opponent's knight first. So here we have 2 threats, right? We're threatening our opponent's knight, and we're still threatening the pawn. Then after the knight retreats, usually goes to knight f3. There's some Grandmaster games lately where white's been playing knight to d3, which is very, very theoretical. We don't need to learn this. This is like super Grandmaster analysis. And then there's also the idea of knight c4, which isn't really that common. So most of the time you're going to see this move knight f3. then we take. And the point being now that if white plays queen e2, trying to take advantage of the open file and the pin on the knight, we just play queen to e7 here, and now there's no problems. If white plays d3, we just bring the knight back, and then if white decides to trade queens here, we're slightly better as black because we have a little bit better development. We have 2 pieces developed compared to 1 for white, and also we can get castled quicker because we can castle next move while white needs to develop this bishop first, and then they can castle. So black is just very, very slightly better here. It's probably very close to even, but black is basically, if we look at the position, right? If we see bishop e2 here from white, notice we have the same exact position except it's black's turn. So basically, black has the advantage now that white has the advantage of moving first. But now in this position, it's sort of like black is playing the white side because now black is playing first and every other piece is exactly the same. So this would be slightly better for black, but probably nothing to be too worried about for either side here. So what else should I point out here? So the most common move for white in this position is actually d4. d3 can be played too with a symmetrical position, and this is also very, very even. But usually it goes d4 and then d5. And here we have a position which has been played in many, many Super Grandmaster games, many games of all levels of chess. And this is just a chess position, right? So either side can try to come up with creative ideas here, and whatever side plays better from this position will win. And if the sides play somewhat even, then it'll be a draw. But right now, nothing is really wrong for either side in this position. So I just want to make sure, right? This is really important. If we're gonna play the Petrov, so basically, if we're just copying moves here, so white played here, black played here. If we're just copying moves, after white takes here, we cannot take this pawn right away. This is a very, very bad move for black. We have to play this move d6 first. We have to force the knight back. Then we can play knight takes e4. Okay, so now that we've gone over the opening in very, very long detail, let's jump into the actual game. Queen e7, take, d6. So the way Aileen played this was pretty reasonable. We're just going to drop a pawn here. So so far, though, like Aileen just didn't know this specific variation, which is fine. There's a lot to learn in chess. But so far, I think she's played reasonably well. So d4, take, and then f6. So this move f6 I don't like. Remember our opening principles. We got to develop our pieces. So a much better move for black here would just be knight c6, developing the knight, hitting the queen, and then also hitting this d4 pawn. And if white decides to trade queens here, we're still up a pawn as white, but at least we have some compensation as black here. Namely, we have better development, right? We have 2 pieces developed, whereas white has absolutely no piece developed, right? None of these pieces have moved yet. And we also have a threat in winning this pawn. And if white tries to get tricky with a move like d5, we might just have knight b4 here, hitting the pawn, hitting the c2 square, and this might be okay for black to get some material back. Although I'm not 100% sure because I don't know. Bishop b5, bishop d7. Yeah, this actually does look quite okay for black here. So probably the best move for white in this position is either bishop e3 or c3. It's hard to say which one's better. Most likely c3 because we don't really want our bishop to just be defending the pawn. We like to get our bishop on a more active square. So maybe bishop f4 is a more logical idea. So yeah, so f6, right? f6 weakens this diagonal. We want to get our pieces developed as quickly as possible, which is why I strongly recommend knight c6, right? Get your pieces developed. These pieces on the back rank need to get developed. So when you hear the word pieces in chess, typically that doesn't mean pawns. Like if someone wants you to move a pawn, they'll say move a pawn. When people say pieces, they're generally talking about these pieces on the back rank. These pieces need to get out. So knight c6 would have been a stronger move here. So we have queen takes, bishop takes. Okay, very good move from Aileen, and then knight c3 and castle. So yeah, this is one of the reasons I want to make this video. Is I've noticed like a huge improvement in Aileen's play, and I honestly feel like she just needs like a little bit more to start winning a bunch more games. So if I didn't see any improvement or any hope, I honestly probably wouldn't be making this video now. But I'm seeing like a ton of improvement and just like a little bit here and there that we need to improve upon. So we have bishop c4 check, king h8, and then knight d5. So yeah, the way Josiah is playing is logical. And I think Josiah is one of the better players we have in the chess class. So Yeah, everything that Josiah's done has been quite good. Bishop d8 from Aileen, which is what was played next, is a bit passive. So she did a great job identifying her opponent's threat, right? The white wants to take the knight, and it also is hitting the pawn here. So Aileen answered both of these ideas with bishop to d8, which is good because she's showing awareness of what her opponent is doing. The problem with this move is we don't want to be retreating our pieces back to the back rank. So here, bishop to d6 is a much better move because now our bishop is still safe. We're still protecting the pawn, but now our bishop is a lot more active, right? It's putting pressure on this diagonal. We have ideas of playing rook to e8 next. We can start getting our knight developed, our bishop developed, and even though we're down a pawn here, we can still make life tough for our opponent. We're not just going to roll over and get crushed here. We're still going to have some ideas. But moving the bishop backwards, it's just our pieces just get a bit too passive. The better you get at chess, the more you'll understand. Like the more active your pieces are, the better your position. And the difference between a 2800 grandmaster and a 2700 grandmaster is the 2800 grandmaster just knows better ways to get their pieces a bit more active. And you can say that for any rating gap. The difference between an 1800 player and a 1700 player is the 1800 player is probably getting their pieces more active higher percentage of the time. So here we have bishop f4. And notice if this bishop was on d6, we could just capture, and if the knight captures back, that's fine. But with the bishop on d8, we're allowing our opponent's pieces to get more active. So now we have a threat here. So here Aileen played rook to e8, which is a very nice move, and then the bishop retreated, so all very good. And then knight c6. So the problem with knight c6 is, right, there's two attackers on the c7 pawn, and we only have one defender. So this was kind of a problem. So one thing we could do is maybe knight a6 to defend the pawn. Although now our knight isn't really on the greatest square in the world. It's not attacking any central squares. So probably we should just go with c6 here. And we will have to give up the bishop pair if white plays knight to c7. So definitely white is better here. But again, we still have a game. And now maybe a move like knight a6, gaining a tempo, makes some sense. Maybe bishop to g4 to attack the pin piece, and forcing white to play f3 might be something to consider. Yeah, so moves like this would be strong. But yeah, just playing knight c6. Well, actually, knight c6 has the idea of taking the d4 pawn. So maybe I'm being much too harsh about this knight c6 move. Maybe this was a better move than I thought. But in this position, I definitely think Aileen should just take the d4 pawn. So this is actually probably the position where things started to go a bit wrong for Aileen. If she would have just played here, this move, I'm trying to think if we should take with the rook or the knight. Probably take with the rook. We even have ideas of playing knight takes c2 here. So all these moves come to mind as strong moves. And one thing that I'm seeing from some of the kids is they're a little bit too much focused on their opponent's threats, and they kind of miss their own ideas in the process. So the best way to kind of explain chess is you're sort of, even though you're playing like either the white piece or the black pieces, you sort of want to analyze from both sides of the chessboard. And the more you do that, the more you're going to spot your opponent's ideas, but also your own ideas. So I think if Aileen was a tad more aggressive here and took the d4 pawn, she probably would have had some decent chances here to make some noise. Because because after we take this this guy, this bishop here, it looks like we also get to take this this pawn as well. And yeah, now it feels like we're not doing so bad. We might have equalized in this position because it looks like both sides have 5 pawns. This knight is on an active square, but it doesn't have any real great jumps here. I don't know, maybe knight c7, but this doesn't seem very good. I mean, after we just play rook b8, this bishop is tied to protecting the knight. So these two pieces are very clumsy to me. So yeah, everything is looking very good for black in this position. So once again, I was much too critical of this knight c6. This is actually a really nice idea by Aileen to put pressure on the d4 pawn. She just got a bit afraid of executing her idea here. So anyway, bishop takes, bishop e7, bishop a5, free piece. So yeah, here we could have just taken taking the bishop. And we're still missing this a lot, which happens. We're still trying to improve. But yeah, I think if Aileen just sees the free piece here, she's probably in just a much better position here. So knight takes, knight c7. So Josiah's doing a good job of spotting his ideas. Rook to d8. Yeah, rook d8 I don't like because I really want to keep this piece on the open file if possible. So one idea here, and this is kind of maybe a tad tricky, is I think we could play bishop to b4 check. And then if the bishop takes, we have rook takes e2 here, and then maybe rook b8. Although I don't know, because in this position there is a c3 move hitting our knight, which is protecting the rook. So maybe this doesn't quite work. So yeah, so I think yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe this knight takes d4 just isn't good in this position, although it was good a couple moves ago. So again, Eileen's like very close. I can see she's spotting the idea. She's getting very close to winning a bunch of games. So take there. Yeah, very nice idea from Aileen here. Take. Ah, that's the problem, right? We're hanging our rook here, so that's the issue. Yeah, so that's the issue. So there's really nothing we can do about this. It's a bit unfortunate, right? It's a bit unfortunate that our rook is being hit by the bishop, and that's why it would have been nice if we would have just taken the bishop while we had the chance. But it happens. It happens. That's how you're gonna get better. Take. Yeah, and then here instead of knight c2, right? Why not just go ahead and take the bishop? So bishop takes d8, looks strong. And even here, we might still be in the game because this knight is trapped, right? This knight has no escape squares. The knight can't move here safely because of the pawn and the bishop, and it can't move to c7 either because of the bishop. So we can just play like b6, potentially, and bishop b7. I'm not sure because white does have the idea of bishop to f3 here, so I'm not sure if we can trap this knight or not. But it's going to be really tough for this knight to ever get out of danger. So we might still be in okay shape here. But after knight to c2, now we're the side losing pieces. So it's much more fun to take your opponent's pieces than have them take your pieces. So take, bishop e6, and yeah, now we're just down a rook and a knight because I guess a rook and a bishop is more accurate. Like both sides have one bishop, but white has another bishop, and then white has an extra rook, and then both sides have a knight here. Anyway, so knight c7, bishop takes there, bishop here. Yeah, and here the bishop can retreat and take, so it's okay. It's easy to miss the retreating bishop moves, but yeah, this knight is not safe here. Yeah, and then this position Aileen resigned, or she ran out of time. I'm not sure, but I think this was a good time for Aileen to call it a day here. But again, it looked like Aileen had her chances, right? If she would have played knight takes a5, she would have been just up a piece. So there's a lot of good things Aileen did because she kind of got a bad position out of the opening, but she fought back really well against a strong player. So to me, that's an extremely encouraging sign. So let's go over another game here. So here she played George, and George is doing tremendous work in chess class. I can see the lot of improvement in George's play, so that's another good thing to see. So let's go ahead and copy paste the game over to the analysis board. What happened here? That's weird. Hold on a second. Okay, yeah, I don't know why that happened. That was weird. So in this game, Aileen had white. So we had d4, d5, e3, and this is an opening Aileen likes. So one thing I want to say is after we move the queen pawns, remember we're supposed to move the c pawn. So I know the kids are always afraid to play this c4 move because they think it's just losing a pawn. But remember, we always have this queen a4 check idea. Not that it's the best move, but if we're worried about being down a pawn, queen a4 gets our pawn back immediately because it's attacking the king, it's attacking the pawn, and there's no way for black to answer both of these ideas. If they decide to make a move like b5 to block the check and protect the pawn, we just take the pawn, and now we're also getting this pawn, so black's actually lost an additional pawn in that variation. So yeah. But e3 is also okay. So I know if you want to play c4, you might feel a bit more comfortable having the bishop protecting the c4 square first. So e3 is a perfectly fine move. So here we had e5 from George, which is a very, very aggressive opening, just giving away the pawn for free. So Aileen took, and then after f6, Aileen played this move f4. So I think this move f4 caused Aileen a lot of trouble in this game. What she should have done is, I think you just take the pawn here, or just play knight f3, right? Like, we want to get our piece developed very, very quickly in chess. And if George decides to take, now we have a lot of really cool ideas for white here. So let's say George plays a move like knight c6. Now we have the option of playing this move, queen to h5 check. And this move is extremely strong because if black decides to block with this pawn, not only were we attacking the king, but we also have a pin along the e file. So in this position, we could just play knight takes pawn, and if black takes, then we just take the rook. And if black plays knight to f6 here, hitting our queen, in this position, we simply play queen to h4 because we want to keep the pin alive. And if the rook moves, we can just, we could take the bishop if we want to. We can move the knight to f4 if we want to. There's a lot of really good moves. Probably just taking the bishop though looks simplest to me. And now we're just up the pawn in a really good position. If in this position king e7, now black's in a ton of trouble. One idea is just queen here, and now the king is out in the open. So we just have to kind of continue the attack in a smart way here. So probably queen f4 looks like the best move. Just putting no, hold on. Queen f4 just hangs the knight. Okay, my apologies. What is the best move for white here? It feels like we should have a really, really crushing move here. For some reason, nothing's really jumping out to me at the moment. I mean, for one, the king can't castle anymore. We could just kind of play knight takes c6, but this doesn't feel like the best continuation. So I really want to find the best move here if possible. Like something like knight to d3 seems very reasonable to me, just getting the knight to safety, and we still have queen f4 check. But it feels like there should be an even better blow here. Let's what's the engine saying? What are we missing here? Knight c3. Okay, knight c3 is a very interesting move. So here we're just giving away the knight, but we get this pawn on d5, and then we get this knight next move. So that's a very nice continuation from the computer there. So yeah, so knight c3 would be interesting. That's going to be a move that would take some time to see, I imagine. I don't know. But even knight d3, we're just much better here as white, right? We're up a pawn. The king can't castle, so the engine's giving us plus 1.5, which means we're up a pawn and a half. But yeah, finding knight c3 would be a very nice move for white to find here. But anyway, we're just better as white here. I'm trying to see if there's an even better move than queen f7, but I think queen f7 is the best move here. Yeah, this knight c3 moves. This is the important move to find. I'm trying to figure out, like, let's say they play here. Then we have knight c4. Wow, knight c4. Take. Knight e4. Oh, queen f4 check. What's wrong with knight e4? Knight b5. Knight e4. Queen here. Knight c5 check. King back. All right, this is kind of a crazy line. So yeah, I'm not really following this line so well. But I guess queen f4 just looks like a crushing blow here. So I guess king e6 runs into bishop takes c4. So we have to play king here, and then I guess we also play bishop takes c4 here, and now we're threatening. I guess we're threatening castle after that, and then rook d1, putting the rook on the open file looks particularly strong. But to play this position as Blackwell is just going to be almost impossible, because once you lose the right to castle, the d file is open. This king is just going to be in a world of hurt here. So anyway, back to the game. So here Aileen played f4, and the problem with f4 is now it's white that has kind of the ugly pawns here, right? These pawns are isolated. There's no other pawns that protect them. And we also have this open diagonal to our king, which is unpleasant. So knight h3, knight f3, very nice move from Aileen. Very nice job blocking the check. And then bishop to b5. So this was a move that so basically the same mistake that George made, right? Bishop to b4 runs into this tempo gaining move of c3. Basically, Aileen made the same mistake with bishop to b5. Here, George played knight c6, but I think I think he should have just played c6, blocking the diagonal this way, and also picking up a tempo. And additionally, we're reinforcing the d5 pawn. So all of these ideas are very good for black. Okay, so anyway, knight c6, castle, excellent job from Aileen. Castle, excellent job from George. Knight b d2, so development's looking perfect. Knight g4, h3, and knight takes e5. So during the video I made of this tournament, I commented that George had the possibility of knight takes e3, which would have been the best move for black, because now we're hitting the queen and the rook, so we're going to pick up some material. So instead of h3, I think I suggested to Aileen in the video to play knight here, and I'm still pretty sure this is the best move, because now we're hitting the bishop, which is defended by the knight. So here Aileen has the opportunity to try to remove the defender if George doesn't see this idea. So probably the best idea for George would be to play bishop to b6, hitting this pawn. And I think Aileen has a couple of choices. She could play either queen e2, defending the pawn again, or she could go for a move like knight b to d4 to block this diagonal. Even another idea might be bishop takes and then knight to d4. But I wouldn't be so happy to see c5 here. This looks like a problem for white. So probably I'm just playing knight here right away, and I don't know, if black decides they want this pawn back, I think we might be able to live with this as white. Oh, it's white's turn here. Okay, my apologies. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, because this c5 move is coming, and I don't really see a great way to deal with this as white. I guess we could play b4 here to stop this c5 move from being as strong. But it feels like we have some weaknesses in our position now, which we'd like to avoid. So anyway, so this was one thing that could have happened. Okay, so take there, and yeah, okay, so g4 is just we don't want to weaken our king, right? This is just way too aggressive of a move. So I think Aileen had a couple choices here. My instinct would probably be to just, I think just trading on e5 is probably fine, and then trading off some pieces. I think this should be fine for white. We do have a weak pawn here, but I feel like I definitely think we're worse because of this weak pawn. But we're not in. I don't know. We're in some trouble. We're not in like an extreme amount of trouble. But after this move g4, we just completely weaken our king, right? We don't want to push the pawns in front of our king so aggressively, especially with how the black pieces are on somewhat active squares here. We have this rook on the open f file. So this is kind of a bit worrisome for white here. So take. So yeah, all this was very good for Aileen. So king there, and I thought c4 was a very nice move from Aileen. So after the black pawn took here, I thought Aileen was going to play queen takes d8 here. So I thought what was going to happen, or I shouldn't say I thought what was going to happen. I thought a possible variation was take. Bishop takes c4, and then we're threatening like knight to e5 ideas, or even knight to g5. Also, we could maybe try to push the e-pawn up the board a bit, because now this e-pawn might be a strength. It's a passed pawn. And that would allow us to get our dark square bishop on a better diagonal if we could get this pawn rolling. So I thought this was all some possible ideas. But unfortunately, Aileen missed that her queen was under attack, which happens. It's a long-range move. These are the moves that are easy to miss. And this is sort of where the game went wrong for Aileen. So again, she should have taken this queen first and then taken on c4, rather than just taking the pawn first. And then yeah, we can go over the rest of the game pretty quickly, because now Aileen is down some material. Oh wait, George hung his. So I think in the video I kind of stopped looking at this game once Aileen got down a queen, but now she got her queen back. So now we're back in business. So instead of king e3, remember, we got to get our pieces developed. So bishop e3, even if knight c2, getting the bishop back is not a big deal. And actually, we don't even have to give the bishop back, because we have this move rook to d1, threatening a back rank checkmate. And if knight takes on e3, instead of taking back the knight with our king, we have rook to d8 checkmate. Remember, anytime your opponent's king can't move forward, you always want to be looking for back rank checkmates. So yeah, so rook to d1 would have been good here. Yeah, king e3 doesn't do. Yeah, so king e3 runs into this fork of knight to c2 check, hitting the king and the rook. So king e3 was a bit of a mistake here from Aileen. just bishop e3, like get your pieces developed, right? This is what we talk about. When you have a chance to develop a piece, take advantage of it because it doesn't always last forever. So get your bishop out. Now you can develop your rook to some good squares. Like this is an open file, right? The D file, and we want our rooks on open files because that's how rooks move. Yeah, and I'm wondering in this position if we had e6. So what did Aileen play? G5. I think e6 would have been a nice try from Aileen to try to get this passed pawn down the board. So there's an expression in chess that passed pawns must be pushed, and I think this would be a good example of that. So after e6, I'm quite sure that black is still better because they're up a whole rook. But now we're starting to make life a tad bit annoying for our opponent. I'm guessing that George would play bishop e8 here. I think this is the best move. And like now the problem is if we push the pawn, we're going to lose our knight for free, unless White decides to take. Then we traded. We lost a knight and a bishop for a bishop, which still means we're down a knight here. So yeah, I think this would still be good for White, but at least e6 gives your opponent a chance to go wrong. Because let's say e6, bishop c6. Now we could play a move like e7, and we are threatening knight to d6 check here, even though I still feel like it's not quite enough. But at least with knight to d6, we are defending the e8 square, so maybe we can make something happen here. And another thing is that this knight on a1 is trapped, so we might not be in as bad a shape here as it looks like. We also could play a move like bishop to g5 to reinforce the pawn, and we're forcing our opponent to find a move like bishop to b4 hitting the pawn, which is something that could be missed, right? It's not the most obvious move in the world. So yeah, I think that's what Aileen should have done. G5 I don't fully get. H6. Yeah, and then instead of taking, I think we should just play pawn here. And now our pawn's defending our knight, so this is really strong. Another idea here is we could have played knight takes h6 here, taking advantage of the discover check. But I'm not sure if that's so great or not, because after king h7, it feels like the White's attack is stalling a tad bit here. And actually, maybe king f8 is actually an even better move, because now it looks like this knight has to go to. Well, I guess we can go to f7. So I guess we don't have to do this. But in this position, it looks like b5 is a very strong move, trying to deflect the bishop away from the knight. And if we play bishop to d5 here, hitting the rook, we have just the move c6. And now there's nowhere for the bishop to move where it can be safe and also protect the knight, because if we play bishop to b3, the knight's just gonna take here. So yeah, so g5, h6, take. All right, so yeah, the way Aileen is fighting back is very admirable here. So bishop g5, okay, another good move. And then for some reason, did Aileen run out of time here? All right, but yeah, another good showing from both George and Aileen. I really thought there was a lot of good moments. There's some moments to learn from. Like both players hung their queens basically, which is the bad part of the game. But I thought there was also a lot of positives. The development is looking much better. Everything is improving. So yeah, that's good to see. And again, I just wish the kids could get a little bit more practice. And I don't want them to feel like chess is like something they have to do. I want it to feel like something they enjoy doing, because if they feel like they have to do it, they're not going to improve. But I do hope like the passion for getting a few more games in a week is there. But I leave that up to the kids, and I know that there's so many other things to be doing in life, and school and everything like that, that it's not easy to find time to play chess. But it would be nice if there was just a few more games a weekend. All right, so now we're going to look at Eileen's game against Charles, and this is going to be the last game we'll look at, and hopefully. Again, this video is not just for Aileen. I know we're going over Eileen's games only, but this video is really for all the kids, because I'm seeing all of these very similar mistakes in all the games still, and that's to be expected, right? It's gonna take time to improve. All right, so let's go back here. All right, so last game, and then we'll upload the video, and hopefully everyone will learn and become better chess players, especially Ray, because I know Ray is watching this intently. Ray's my biggest fan, so I always appreciate Ray. Um, Ray's going to be a really strong chess player. That I am very confident of. So anyway, let's look at this. So we have a French defense here. So a very nice job from Aileen, right? She's really remembering if your opponent allows you to play d4 and e4, which is the classical pawn center, because we're controlling these 4 squares, it's almost always a good idea just to get those moves in. Okay, so we have d5. So this is called the French defense. And notice the way that the black pawns are pointing this way. So it tells you that your opponent's probably going to be attacking on the queen side. A general rule of thumb is whatever direction your opponent's pawns are pointing, that's the direction they should be attacking on because they have more space. So basically the black pawns are pointing in this direction. If we played e5, then notice the white pawns would be pointing in this direction. So white should be attacking like on the king side, like this half of the board, because that's where we have a space advantage. So the idea of d5 is we're attacking the e5 pawn. So we should do something about this, right? We should either take here, which is called the exchange French, which isn't the most aggressive opening, but it's a playable move. We should play e5, which is called the advanced French. So here we're pushing our pawn so black can't take. We have this move knight to d2, which is called the Tarrasch. And the point of the Tarrasch is we could play c3 still and really get a strong center. Or knight to c3, which is by far the most common move. So the point of knight c3 is pretty straightforward, right? This knight's on a dark square, so it's controlling the 2 light squares in the center. And if black decides to take our pawn, we just take back, and we have a slightly better position because this pawn is better than this pawn. And the light square bishop can't get outside the pawn chain. So knight f3 does just drop a pawn here. And Charles should have just went ahead and taken the free pawn while he can, but he played knight f6. So now we have 2 attackers against this pawn, and we have 0 defenders. So when Aileen plays knight to c3 here, it's not enough, right? That's why I'm always talking about in class, count the attackers versus defenders. So here black has 1 attacker, 2 attackers, and we only have 1 defender. So what white should have done here is just play e5 and ask this knight where it's going. I can go to e4, I think. I mean, I know it can move here, obviously, but I'm trying to figure out if the knight's going to get trapped here or not. And the more common idea in the French is just to put the knight on d7, where it fights for the c5 square, because black really wants to play c5 and attack the base of this pawn chain. So the base just means the pawn that's protecting the other pawn. And one idea for white is to reinforce the pawn chain by playing c3. Now we have an even stronger base, so now the base of the pawn chain is b2. And it's really hard for black to play get at this b2 pawn. It's going to take a lot of moves. So this is a very strong pawn chain for white. So anyway, though, knight here. Yeah, now we're just down a piece. So so this was kind of a tough start to this game for Aileen. We can't be just getting down a piece, right? So after we play knight takes pawn, this knight is going to be captured by this other knight. So basically what we did as white is we gave up our knight and we captured a pawn. So we gave up a piece that's worth 3 points for a piece that's worth 1 point. Okay, knight c6. And yeah, Aileen is really focusing on the opening principles. So again, I'm only making this video because I feel like Aileen is very close to improving a bunch. And if I didn't get that feeling, then I wouldn't be making this video. I would just try to work with her during class time, of course. But I would just be like, oh, we got a long way to go. We just need to keep working at it. But from the games I've seen, it's very close to the improvement coming quickly. So that's why I'm making the video. I think Aileen is going to jump up in strength here very soon. So here we have bishop g5, and Aileen might be getting tired at this point in the tournament because here we have 2 attackers and only 1 defender. So we're just dropping another piece here. So take h4. Yeah, and this is another thing that's important. I guess, like, okay, normally we want to play queen takes, but I see that Aileen was probably worried about knight takes d4, which she should be. So maybe that's why Aileen took with the pawn. But I just want to make sure that everyone's seeing that, in general, if we have the option to take with the queen, that's usually the much better option. Because if we take with the pawn, now we just opened up the g file to our king, which we don't want to do. So take. Yeah, knight takes d4 was a really nice move from Charles, because after bishop takes b5, queen takes, we're protecting the knight. And if we take our opponent's knight here, which happened in the game, then we lose our bishop. So knight takes d4 was a stellar move from Charles there. Very, very nice move from Charles. Okay, queen back. So that doesn't really change much, right? We're still trading queens when we're down material. Bishop there, another nice move from Charles. So here we hung a rook, so that was not such a good idea from Charles. Like here we just have to get our bishop safe, so bishop c6 looks fine. Anywhere where our bishop is safe is fine. We could even go like bishop e4 is also fine, hitting the pawn if the rook doesn't protect it. So like rook here, we could take another pawn. But basically anywhere where our light square bishop is safe is good. Yeah, so here we just hung the rook for the bishop. The best move I think is clearly just rook takes f7. Get our rook on the 7th rank where it's very, very active. Hit this pawn. Now this pawn is weaker. We're still down a piece, so it's a really bad position for black still. But at least we're getting some counterplay and giving ourselves some hope. After rook a3, now all hope is kind of lost. So I don't know again if Aileen resigned here or ran out of time, but resigning here would be fair because it's 2 rooks versus 1 rook. So I think this game went tough for Aileen just because she hung some pieces. Again, she could have been tired at this point, so who knows? You know, it's a long tournament, so it could be fatigue setting in. Anyway, though, I really want to make this video though because I feel like we have several students who are really on the verge of improving a ton. I think Vincent has made a huge jump. George is making very, very good strides as well. Probably if Devin plays in a few more of these tournaments, I'll be making a video like this for him as well because I think Devin is close to making a big jump as well. Anyway, though, I hope this video was extremely instructive. I hope that the kids who want to watch it do watch it and try to learn from it. And yeah, I again, the most common reason we're losing games is hanging pieces. But there was actually the first 2 games. The third game, Aileen basically hung too many pieces. But the first 2 games were really interesting games, especially the game against Josiah was very fascinating. And I hope that video kind of explains like just the little things we're missing that really make the difference between playing excellent chess and playing good chess. So right now I think we're playing good chess, and I think we're close to playing like very good to excellent chess. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to get some rest now. And yeah, thank you for watching. All right, bye.